Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone. We have an exciting event for you all featuring our guest speakers who are all Ivy League undergrads. So today we have our guest speaker. We actually have 4 guest speakers: Brian from Cornell University, Kevin from Brown University, Esther from UPenn, and Kathleen from Harvard University. So today, so we now have the undergrad discussions. So let's start with Brian, who will introduce himself, tell us his passions, the university, and why he chose to attend, college admissions process, tips, stats, awards.
So I'm going up to 4. Lena, you want me to go through number 4?
Yeah, just go through the whole list.
Oh, okay. All the way through 7 or just through?
Through 7.
Okay. So I'm Brian. I go to Cornell. I'm in the Applied Economics and Management program, which is our way too long way to say the business program. Everyone in that program majors in Applied Economics and Management, but you take a concentration or 2 concentrations. I'm concentrating in finance, and then I'm pursuing a minor in computer science. I kind of had 2 main passions through most of high school and into college. The first was ice hockey, and the second was like building small businesses and thinking about how I might play a role in the business world. I chose to attend Cornell. Wow, kind of complicated. So when I came out of high school, my 3 top schools, honestly, in no particular order, were UPenn, NYU, and Cornell. Obviously all sort of for business programs: UPenn, Wharton, NYU, Stern, Cornell. I did get into all 3 out of high school and chose to go to Cornell. Honestly, my parents both went to Cornell. That was actually a big influence in like me deciding to go to Cornell over the other schools. I felt like I knew some people there already and kind of felt acclimated. I also felt like the Dyson business program was less finance focused. It's about 50% finance majors rather than closer to 70 or 80 from some of its peer programs. And while I wanted to concentrate in finance, I didn't just want to be at a school that felt like it was a Wall Street finishing academy rather than a holistic business education. I liked its social life. NYU and UPenn have, great cities. It's cool to be in a city, but I think I valued more like some space and some more social, like, I don't really know how to describe the social life exactly, but more sports teams, more things of that nature. No particular faculty, I guess, influenced that decision, although there was one business professor I spoke to beforehand that I found interesting at Cornell. So my college admission process was very non-traditional. I got into Cornell out of high school and then chose to play 3 years of semi-professional ice hockey instead of going to college. And then got hurt too many times and tried to reapply to Cornell when I was done with hockey, and they told me to go away. So I actually went to Northeastern University in Boston my freshman year, 3 years after what was supposed to be my freshman year, and then transferred successfully back to Cornell for my sophomore year. So got into Cornell out of high school, didn't go, and then found my way back. I got a so because I'm a little bit older, I did the 2400 SAT. The conversion's not hard, but I took the ACT once and I took the SAT twice. I think I got a 31 on the ACT, and then I got a 2050 or a 2040 on the SAT the first time, and then a 2260 on the SAT the second time. And my last testing of the SAT was also my super score, so I got no benefit from the earlier testing day. Really straining the memory back. For my essays, they were similar both times. The only thing that changed between when I applied straight out of high school and when I applied after playing hockey for a little while is I took out one of my high school essays and put in a more recent one describing my experience over sort of the 3 years after high school. But I did one about small businesses I had started throughout my life, starting with like a snow shoveling business in my neighborhood when I was a middle schooler and high schooler, going into, I did a small website that sold the currency associated with EA Sports video games with a couple of friends in high school. That was sort of one essay. Another essay was around the injury. So I got injured in high school, which is why I had to spend so much time between high school and college playing hockey. and then got injured again after college. But in high school, I had a story about getting injured in high school. In college, when I applied again, I had sort of a similar story, but reworked. And then I think my third essay that I can remember was about sort of my family. I come from a really large extended family. My dad has 11 siblings, and so talked a lot about my interactions with them and just some volunteer experience I've been in. So activities, volunteer service accomplishments. So I won the New Jersey State Hockey Championship twice. I also switched high schools to pursue hockey more seriously. So I won the New Jersey State Championship sophomore and junior year, and then got hurt and missed my whole senior season, and we lost my senior year championship in the final. And then academically, I won like one of the national Spanish awards. If you've taken, I don't know if you guys still have like foreign language national tests for foreign language classes, but I got like bronze in the national Spanish language exam. I have no idea if that's any good. You'll know better than I do. I don't speak any Spanish, so who knows what good that did. And then I just talked about, I did volunteer a decent amount through high school and middle school. Lots of different things, building blankets for people in hospitals, some food drive type stuff, some sandwiches for the poor type stuff. But kind of a lot of mix. My family always made sure we did stuff every year, and it depended on the year what we did. I guess that's kind of 5 and 6. 5, I guess, is also, I played hockey and soccer competitively through 9th grade, dropped soccer for 10th grade and up. But I also played guitar. What else did I do? I think that's pretty much it. Tips for getting accepted, classic. I think for the Ivies especially, don't not apply because you don't think you can afford it. The Ivies are pretty good about need-based aid, even among similar institutions and down the ladder. I didn't need aid when I first got to school, and then I did because my family struggled financially, and they were very reasonable about that. So, I mean, I can't speak to the full needing aid experience, but I do know that they do a great job. I would say scores and GPA are boxes to check, not necessarily differentiators, right? As more and more people apply to college, more and more people have the scores and the GPA checked off. And you're competing with, you guys are going to an excellent high school with a reputation, but you're also competing against kids who go to high schools that some of these schools have never heard of, or don't send a lot of people to these schools, who have just as good grades at you at that school. Now, to say whether they were as hard to get, who knows? But you don't know their life circumstances either, and so scores very quickly become boxes to check rather than ways that admissions counselors are like, I want that person. I think quantity of experiences, like on your Common App and things like that, are important, but quality is far more important, right? They do give you an opportunity to list lots of activities, but they also give you an opportunity to say how many hours per week you worked on that activity. And so 3 or 4 activities, or 1 or 2 activities with a lot of hours a week is just as good, if not better, if you can speak to them, than 9 or 10 activities just to feel like you fill the whole thing. And then you guys are going to do alumni interviews if you haven't already. And alumni interviews can be really stressful and feel really stressful, especially depending on the disposition of the interviewer. But they're really just conversations. They want to know the human. They want to understand if you're going to be an active member of campus and contribute to being a student at the school, rather than like, oh, I talked to 10 people as an alumni interviewer, and this one just seems so much smarter than all the rest of them. That is not really a conversation that's usually had. And I'm not speaking out of pocket there. My mom volunteers and does alumni interviews for Cornell. So I've actually seen a lot of them and heard a lot of them through the hallways. I probably went too long, but sorry, that's all 7.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. So whoever's going to go, okay, so Kevin's going to go next. He's from Brown University.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Kevin. I am currently a junior studying economics and behavioral decision sciences at Brown University. I agreed to Lena's request to speak to y'all, primarily mostly because I like going to Brown, and I didn't know much about it before, even applying for school. And now entering into my 3rd year, attending, it's really been a life-changing experience and it's been fantastic. So I would love for anybody to be able to learn as much as I did about the school, and maybe hopefully inform your decisions to not make such a terrible mistake as to go to Cornell. I'm playing, of course. So I guess I'll just go down the line here. My passions. This is gonna sound really nerdy and very academic and maybe stereotypical of a college student, but I genuinely love to learn. And that's one of the big reasons that I decided to attend Brown. And I'll get into a little bit why some of the specifics in the next line, but I generally just love to learn new things. I like to talk to other people about the things that I've just learned. So naturally that means I love to read nonfiction books. I like research-based books. I mentioned that I study economics and behavioral sciences. Some of my favorite things to read are from Daniel Kahneman, Amos Tversky, Richard Thaler. Those are just some popular economists and social scientists. So to talk about actually why I decided to attend Brown, I mentioned I did not know much about it. My dream school was actually Stanford. And then after that, it was Princeton. And then after that, it was Harvard. And at some point along the line, I realized I couldn't get in. I realized that I probably was not going to be able to get in. And so not to paint Brown as some second-rate institution, but it's just objectively not as difficult to get into Brown as, say, HYP or Stanford or MIT or whatever. But that was okay, because the more and more I learned about Brown and what made it unique from all the other schools, the more and more I became excited about it. And obviously now that I'm here, I am able to tell you guys how much I love it. So if you're unfamiliar with Brown, the big draw for the university is the open curriculum. What that means is pretty much every university in the nation has what they call a core curriculum or some version of it, where you have to complete some requirement, whether it's you take a couple of science classes or a couple of history classes, a couple of English classes, a couple of math classes. Every school kind of has their own version of this. Brown University does not. You are allowed to take whatever class whenever you want, with no restrictions. The only restrictions that you have are you have to take 4 classes per semester for all of your semesters, and you have to take 2 writing classes. The writing classes are also, say, an economics class. So I took an architecture class last semester, and it was a writing class because it's essay-based. And you get feedback from the professor, and you iterate on your writing process. So those are the only restrictions. I personally was enamored with economics, even in, say, junior year of high school or so. So all I really wanted to do was learn more and more about economics. And Brown was literally the perfect place for me to do that. My first semester in college, I took 4 economics classes. My next semester in college, I took 3 economics classes. And that's not something that you're afforded. That opportunity is not something afforded to students at other universities, especially not to freshmen just entering. So again, it kind of ties into a little bit of the theme of who I am as a person. I just like to learn for the sake of learning, and that's definitely something that Brown cares about. It's something that's a big part of their messaging to students. It's part of our culture, and it kind of serves as the heart and soul of our entire campus, is this desire to learn and to not have any strings attached, just to learn for the sake of learning. I can tell you more about some other things about Brown that I came to learn. We're the happiest school, a lot of people like to say. They do some of those surveys. It's hard to tell whether or not they're reliable or credible, but it's a popular thing to say that Brown University students are the happiest. It's definitely true. Everyone is generally very laid back, especially given the freedom that we have. I don't know, people are just generally much more comfortable where they are. I think have a lot more freedom to do what they actually would like to do. I know a friend who took like animal psychology, pirate history, imperial Japanese history, and Sanskrit in one semester. None of them were required for his major, but he had absolute freedom to do so. So that's something that you'll definitely see kind of reflected also in the kind of people that attend Brown. Just people who tend to be very open-minded. We have a reputation for being the most liberal school, or one of the most liberal schools in America. So maybe that's something that you would like to consider if you want to be surrounded by people of that disposition. But yeah, those are kind of some of the reasons why I chose Brown and why I continue to love Brown. The admissions process, test scores, essays, personal statements. So I, unlike Brian, was on the 1600 scale for the SAT. I took the SAT twice. I did not take the ACT. First time I took the SAT, sorry, I got a 1380. Second time I took it, I got a 1580. I guess there's a couple other things. I took 21 AP classes. I think I only took like 15 of the exams or something. Subject tests, I took the ones that everyone takes: Math 2, Chemistry, World History. So I guess those are some of those test scores that I had. College essays, so I only applied to a few schools. I actually applied to Brown early decision, which basically means if you apply early decision, if they accept you, you commit to going, you commit to attending. So I don't know how much y'all know at this point in your high school careers, but there's 2 phases to applications. The first phase is early, second phase is regular. I applied to 4 schools: Georgia Tech, I'm from Georgia, MIT, U Chicago, and Brown. I was accepted to Brown. I was deferred for both MIT and Chicago, and I was accepted to Georgia Tech. As far as my essays went, again, I only applied to 4 schools, so I only needed to write a couple of different stories. I chose to write about my unusual family experience. So I'm Eastern Asian, I'm Korean. And pretty much every Korean household, the father is the breadwinner. My home is actually the opposite, where my mom works full time. She works a couple of jobs, actually. My dad decided to stay and raise me and my older brother. So I felt that was something a little bit unique to me. Obviously, it's hard to tell any unique story. There's hundreds of thousands of high school students that are applying every single year in America. So I think it's kind of a fruitless effort to try and find something so unique about yourself that you can distinguish the specific details of your story from someone else's. But it was something that was important to me and something that I felt shaped who I was to become in the future. So I wrote about that. A couple of other things. Why do you want to apply to Brown? I just explained to y'all. That kind of stuff. But yeah, I didn't have too many things going on with my personal essays. As far as my high school career went, starting with high school, ending in college, I played violin for 9 years, 10 years. I played in a national orchestra a couple of times. I played with NAFME, and then I also played with Music for All, the honor orchestra in Indianapolis. I was part of the baseball team freshman and sophomore year. I played on the freshman and JV teams. Beyond that, I was president of our Latin club, which I know sounds quite nerdy. It is. But there was a big state or national organization in Georgia. Was one of the bigger chapters. So I was very involved in that. It was a good experience for me to learn just generally how to work with your peers in a more leadership setting, and also to trying to just learn some logistical administrative things that I found to be useful when I ended up going to college. My primary career interest is in management consulting. For those of you who don't know, it basically is when you advise business professionals in a company on how they should approach their strategy. For example, if they've faced declining profits in the past 3 years, you might be asked to figure out why and how you can move forward to help address that. So I'm part of the Brown Consulting Club. That's probably my biggest extracurricular engagement. I'm part of the healthcare investment group. I was briefly interested in finance for a little bit. Some more fun things. I started a podcast with a friend. We do basketball. We talk about basketball every week. We're on the FM radio, actually. So those are just some of the things that I've been doing in college thus far. And hopefully that gives you a better idea of, I guess, what I was like in high school, what kind of things I did. Volunteer service, I played violin, so sometimes I would volunteer with the church orchestra. Nothing too serious about volunteer stuff. I think I briefly touched already on some notable achievements. I would not consider myself to be a particularly merited person. I don't know if I can say anything here. I guess I was salutatorian at my high school, which just means I was second in class rank. And I think that's pretty much it. Tips for getting accepted. So this is something I know all of you guys care a lot about, as maybe you should. If I had to give y'all some advice though, I read over many of my friends, both my peers and people who are younger than I am. I read over their essays. I knew the specs, of course. I think what I've come to understand about college admissions is that it largely is a fit thing. As Brian was mentioning, test scores, your extracurriculars, a lot of these are checkboxes. You'll find that when you're competing in an applicant pool of everybody that goes to these kind of universities, it's very competitive. Exactly as Brian was saying, it doesn't matter if your SAT score is 10 points higher than someone else's. What does matter rather is how well do you fit with this school. So for Brown, I obviously felt then and I feel now that I was a perfect fit. The culture that they had cultivated as far as their academic program goes, the kind of people that attend and apply, I felt that it was perfect for me. And I think the more that you're able to kind of show a school, whether it's in your essays or in your alumni interview, the more that you're able to show that this is a genuine interest, that you want to be at the school for the right reason, not just because it has a good name value or because it'll help you get a better paying job, because your parents wanted you to go to an Ivy League. You need to go for the right reason. And that's true, especially after you get into the school as well. You don't want to waste 4 years of your life somewhere that you don't feel happy and that you are not excited to be. There are people who get into Harvard, people who get into Columbia or Stanford, and they'll transfer because it wasn't for them. Not to say, obviously, that Harvard, Columbia, or Stanford are not great schools, but it's not for everybody. And that's true of every single university that you'll look at. So really consider what it is that you want out of your experience. How do you want to spend 4 years of your life? What kind of people do you want to meet? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to learn? And ultimately, what experience do you want? And I would say that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I wish I had gotten, because I definitely would not have wasted so much time thinking about any other school than the one that was for me, and that was Brown University. So hopefully that helped. Sorry if I took a little bit long on this one. But yeah, that's it for me.
Great, thank you so much, Kevin. Now we will introduce Esther, who got into UPenn.
Hi guys, my name's Esther. I go to UPenn. I'm a sophomore and I'm studying computer engineering, so I'm not an econ major, though funnily enough, I am taking an econ class this year, and it's pretty interesting so far. My passions, okay, I have like 2 major passions that I think have been like defining my life, you know, as far back as I can remember. And the first one is like, you know, creating things. Like when I was younger, like I loved art, I loved drawing, I loved painting. And over time, especially when I got to high school, that grew into, you know, into loving architecture. So for a while, I thought I would become an architect. I even took like 3 years of architecture at high school. But that changed when I did an engineering summer program during my junior year of high school. And then I realized that, you know, like before then, I thought engineering was just like, I thought it would be boring. I thought it was just like, you know, math and science and numbers. Those things I did enjoy, but like, you know, I didn't think it would be fun. But when I did that program, I worked on a project with 3 other people, and we got to build our own tablet, and it was like such an amazing experience. And I realized that, you know, in engineering, there's a lot of artistic freedom depending on which route you go. There's a lot of room to create what you want and basically change the world. My second passion is trying new things, and that really manifested when I got to high school. So the high school I went to is actually very similar to Brown, in that we had like very few like requirements, but we had like so many options on like what we wanted to take. So in high school, I got to take all sorts of classes that I never even considered trying out. Before, I used to be more of a shy person, but like when I got to high school, I tried improv, I tried acting, and it was pretty fun. I took tons of art classes, so I mean, back to being creative. I took painting classes, drawing classes. I did high school chorus for 4 years. I played volleyball and I ran track. So basically, like, you know, so many things that I was able to do in high school, like really fed into like being able to try new things. And that's something I definitely took with me to college. Okay, so when I was applying to college, I was actually stuck in a 3-way between UPenn, Cornell, and Brown. And what really what really led me down the path to go to UPenn was actually visiting the school. I know that because of the pandemic, that's not really an option right now, but I did a couple of flying programs, and getting to spend a couple of days on campus and filling out the atmosphere, the student life, the opportunities on campus was really a game-changing factor for me. So I felt very attached to Brown because it was very similar to my high school. But what eventually pulled me to UPenn was I liked the city I was in better. I'm from New York City, so I wanted something like a college that was in an urban area. So UPenn fit the bill. Also, what drew me to it was um, like I don't know, the students there. I mean, when I visited Brown, it wasn't like the students were bad. They were great. But I just felt more like at home at UPenn during my time there than compared to Brown. And also UPenn, there's a motto that students like to say, which is work hard, play hard. So definitely it's a lot of work, but there's always a lot of fun things to do on campus. There's a very robust social life. So if you like parties, there's that. But there are also so many clubs that cater to so many different interests. There are tons of engineering related clubs, which I'm planning to apply to next semester. There are a lot of writing clubs, acting clubs. There are enough clubs to cater to literally anyone's interests, and that's what I really love about the school as well. College admissions process. So I before I decided to officially take any exam, I did practice exams to decide whether I wanted to do the ACT or the SAT. I decided that I didn't like the ACT, so I did the SAT instead. I took so many practice exams before I officially went for the SAT. And so I only did the SAT once, and I got a 1520 on the 1600 scale. I did I think 4 or 5 different subject tests, and that was because when I applied as an engineer, my UPenn required that I had a math exam and some science exam, and I wasn't sure which science I should do because really I'm a computer engineer, not a chemical engineer or bioengineer or mechanical engineer. So I didn't really care about chemistry, bio, or physics. I was just, trying to source out which one would grant me the highest score. I didn't really care. But so I ended up doing multiples of those, and I just went with the highest score. I did math too, and I did English lit as well. As for college essays, I centered mine around, building my character development. So again, I mentioned earlier that I used to be very shy, very introverted, and I basically used my experience at my high school as a focus point to show my growth from entering high school and then leaving high school. So my the expansion of my interests, the character development that I had. I also centered my personal statement about my engineering summer program during my junior year. I tied that into basically it was I made a comparison between building the process, the engineering process and design process behind building a tablet, and the process of building up yourself and character. So that was what my personal statement was about. As for activities, I did a lot of stuff in high school. I think I mentioned these earlier, like volleyball, track. I did math club as well. I also did volunteer service. So most of my volunteer work centered around education and schools. So I'd like go to school and help with their like beautification day. So we'd like paint the walls, make everything look nice. Or another one that I did was basically building a library for a kindergarten class. So we sorted the books and put them nicely on shelves and stuff. And another one I did was like sort of like being a TA for a 3rd/4th grade class as well, which was a really interesting experience. As for notable achievements, I don't really have any academic ones. I mean, I have a couple of sports ones, but those are, I don't think they're notable because my school was part of like a small association of other schools in New York. But one year, the volleyball team I was on got 1st place in that league. And another year, the track team I was on, I got 3rd place in a relay race. So that was cool. And tips for getting accepted, as like other people have mentioned already, you definitely want a strong track record, academic track record. So like, I mean, to go deeper on that, you know, even like, I don't know what everyone's situation is like right now, but, you know, I think in general, if you had a rough start, schools love seeing improvement. So, I mean, if you're in a situation where maybe like your freshman year wasn't the strongest, that's all right. Like an upward trend is always much better than like, you know, starting off bad and staying bad. Also, again, having multiple extracurriculars and not just having them just to have them, but also being invested in them. I think Brian already mentioned this, but putting in the hours and the time and the effort. So like, don't just say like, hey, I can list XYZ off. You know, it should be meaningful. It should add to the depth of your application. That's basically what each part of the application is for. It's to let the school know who you are. So like every part reveals to the school some like, you know, some part about you. And so I like, when I was listing off my activities, I made sure to make as much of them relevant to what I was trying to communicate to the school. So I applied as an engineer, and I really emphasized the program I did in high school in order to like reach the fact that, hey, I'm serious about studying this. I'm like, you know, I've made an effort to begin that learning process, and I'm making it a part of myself. That being said, like, you know, if you don't know what you want to do, it's okay. But in general, like, all the activities that you do should have some kind of meaning, instead of just like, you know, like, I don't know, not having any meaning. Because I remember like when I was doing the application, I talked to like, I had a couple of advisors, and like some of them even mentioned that activities can include like, you know, if you like, let's say your parents they work a lot, they're not around. If you babysit younger siblings for a significant amount of time during the week, like you can include that as like an activity, and it's pretty meaningful. Like, it shows responsibility. It shows that like, you know, you have character, as opposed to like just saying like, oh, I'm part of this club and sometimes I attend, sometimes I don't. As for scholarships and resources, the Ivies are pretty good about financial aid. As a matter of fact, you can do a thing where if you apply to multiple schools, if you want to go to a certain school, but the financial aid is a little off, but you apply to another school and they give you a better financial aid package, you can go between them and negotiate things down until a level that you're comfortable with. I didn't end up having to do that because UPenn happened to also be like the best financial aid package I got. But that's a tip that I got from one of my advisors. And another thing is that, you know, if you have like extraneous like circumstances, you can talk to the school, talk to the financial advisors. So I did have an extraneous like circumstance, and I was able to basically like plead my case, and the school like responded like very generously. So like basically like as long as you apply for financial aid, fill out the FAFSA, all that stuff. These schools are very like generous. They have big endowments, and if you need a better package, you can always negotiate.
Awesome, thank you so much. So now, last but not least, we shall have Kathleen from Harvard University.
Hey guys, okay, so I'm Kathleen. As Lena said, I'm 10 Harvard, right? I'm currently in my dorm actually right now. I don't know if you heard in the news, but Harvard freshmen are the only classes allowed back on campus. But all my classes are online regardless. I'm from Texas. I'm from College Station, Texas, but I lived most of my life in Montana, like in a really small town in Montana. So I'm kind of like halfway between those places often. Yeah, I'm a first year, so I graduate in a long time. So in Harvard, you're not allowed to like declare concentration until like the end of your sophomore year. But as of right now, I'm currently mostly going to major in molecular and cellular biology. I'm very much a biology STEM person. I'm also pre-med, so I do plan to apply to medical school after college. So I guess my passions, also at high school, I guess in middle school, I've always been interested in medicine and research, right? More specifically the intersection between it. And translational medicine, like basically getting results off the laboratory bench into like hospitals onto like to affect patients directly, right? So I was interested in that, and more specific to microbiology. In 7th grade, I did a science fair project over like bacteriophages and bacteria, and I think that's where I really fell in love with working in a lab and biology and things like that. However, I really started getting into nonprofit work. So I'm thinking perhaps when I graduate from college, sorry, I don't know if you guys hear that, there's like sirens going off outside, but I do want to work in a nonprofit, like there's Doctors Without Borders, things like that, maybe after medical school or something. So I chose Harvard for many reasons. Okay, so my college process was basically, I applied to 17 schools. I got into many of them, but ultimately my decisions ended up going between Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins. So I guess talk about like my decision or my deciding factors between them. Okay, so for example, Johns Hopkins was my dream school ever since I was little, right? I mean, Johns Hopkins, you hear like, oh, medicine, right? School of medicine is very great at Johns Hopkins, right? And I did visit the school too, so I was very much hooked onto it. And if you're considering pre-med, definitely apply to Johns Hopkins. They have amazing resources there. But I ultimately ended up not going to the school because I'm not sure if y'all have heard, but Johns Hopkins does have a reputation for having a really big stress culture there. And in high school, I did stress myself out a lot and wasn't like the most healthy thing ever. And I really, in college, I wanted to go somewhere where I could be able to focus on like just like passion of learning, things like that, and not focus on like grades or who has the highest GPA and things like that. So that's why I really started like I didn't really consider Johns Hopkins near the end, but very good school regardless. Columbia was also a really good school. I actually got special scholarship called the Eggleston Scholar there, and actually it's a really good scholarship. I think they offered you like $10,000 just for research funding, so it was very good deal. But I ultimately did not end up going. I did visit the school too. And when I visited, okay, so I'm from Montana, right? So going to a school in New York City kind of was off-putting to me. I'm very much an outdoorsy person. I love hiking, camping, skiing, things like that. And New York City obviously isn't the best place for that. But yes, I love the campus. The campus is very, very pretty, but it is very small. It's sort of cramped in the middle of New York City. So that didn't really appeal to me much. So I think that's mainly why I ended up going to Columbia, even though I did have a great offer from them, and they're still definitely a great school. And then Yale. Okay, so Yale, I also really considered it, but between Yale and Harvard, honestly, Harvard is much more of a school for STEM. Yale definitely starting to like up its STEM programs by recruiting lots of people who are interested in STEM, but obviously Harvard does have a very good STEM program, especially for biology and people going into medical school and things like that. Yale obviously is more strongly humanities. And so obviously I'm very much a STEM person, and going to Yale wouldn't really suit like my future interests. that I wanted to go into research and things like that. So ultimately, I didn't end up choosing Yale. And then for Harvard, lots of reasons why I chose Harvard. So obviously, it was like, I think out of all the schools I got into, it was definitely the best for my major and going pre-med, right? Also the Boston, Cambridge area. I was in the Cambridge area summer before I applied to college for a summer program. And the Boston, Cambridge area is so wonderful. Boston's literally like the center of all colleges. There's so many colleges in Boston. And just like the environment here, you know, being surrounded by other college students, also studying, who also like dedicated and want to like, you know, go somewhere. I think it's very much motivating environment, and it's so cool to be able to network with other people from like that you've never met before, right? From all over like the world, really. And I think like the area is such a nice place. I mean, it is really fun to explore and things like that. Financial aid, obviously Harvard is very, very good in financial aid. I would consider it the top school with like the most financial aid. Obviously, like Esther said, you can negotiate with any other schools, right? But yeah, Harvard gave me a great financial aid package. It was the best out of all the schools I got into. So it definitely was good for my family in terms of cost. And lastly, most importantly, I picked Harvard because of the people. So like, obviously, when I got into Harvard, I was actually like, I might not go, right? Because, you know, there's a stereotype that Harvard people are like very cold and very like not fun at all. That's what I was thinking, right? I was even scared to join like the group chat that they have for class of 2024 because I was like, I'm not gonna fit in. But when I joined it, you know, people were actually so normal. People at Harvard are so normal. People were joking about like quarantine and like Avatar and like failing the AP physics exams. Like everyone's there like for normal and like fun. And the people there, they're so kind and everyone cares so much. They're so passionate. That's what I always say, seeing everyone my peers here. And that's what really, really like made me like go for Harvard, because I don't know, the group chat was always talking. Everybody here is like very welcoming, and even like the upperclassmen too, right? They always say like, oh, come to Harvard, you know, if you have any questions, reach out to us. And that really, really helped me like, choose Harvard in the end. I guess so. Okay, so my college admissions process, I guess like other people said, for like school like Harvard, again, like once you reach a certain like threshold, you're not like there's nothing else you can really do in terms of scores. I personally had a 1500 in the SAT and a 34 in the ACT. So I guess like not the highest scores, obviously. And I think even like for any like top school, anything above like a 1450, anything maybe like 31 plus in the ACT is fine. Like literally it's fine. I think much more matters like your activities and your essays. I did take SAT subject tests, but those were not good. I'm really bad at math. My math Q test was not that great. I ended up submitting it to Harvard anyway. I only took it because I needed it for MIT, but yeah. And I took biology exam. I didn't do that well on that one either, but obviously they don't matter. I don't think those tests matter much for this application season at all because of like coronavirus and like testing centers being closed. Yes, and oh yeah, so essays. So a lot of my essays revolved around three things: my passion for researching medicine, like the intersection of that, and for my Common App application, my essay, I wrote about the public library. So like when I was like my whole life really, I've been involved in public library. You know, when I was in Montana, when I was little, every single day after school, I'd go to the library. And my mom would take me there because she took English classes there to learn English. And I would just like read picture books on the side or something. But as I grew up, right, in high school, I started volunteering for the library here in Texas. And I don't know, really just like interacting with so many like little kids and like parents. And I talked really about the public library helped me like foster my curiosity. I learned lots of things. I procrastinated a lot at the library, reading books all day long. And I really wrote about like my love for the library and reading, and how like I think the library was a big influence for me, and like my dedication to, you know, studying, both using that studying for greater good, for social good. Now, another big topic I used for my essays was I mentioned a summer camp, right? I went to a summer camp at MIT last summer called MICE. It's basically you take classes at MIT, and it's much more than that. It's really a family you make there. But you know, that was the first place I actually the first place I've ever seen other people of color who like were really like out there and like really like were dedicated and things like that. You know, I grew up in in Montana. I grew up in a really rural area, right? So, or I was the only Hispanic person in my school. So really, I didn't have anyone other people to look up to, people that like looked like me, who were like, you know, an area in like STEM, for example, right? But going to this place, it really showed me like I'm not alone, right? And this really changed my like viewpoint of the world, you know. I talked a lot about that in my essays and how, you know, I want to create more spaces or more programs like these that help cater to, you know, POC communities, right, and help them get more engaged in STEM and things like that. Okay, and so then activities I did in high school. So I did mainly I just did like 3 clubs, I guess, in high school. I did a thing called HOSA. I don't know if you all heard of it. It's more of a Texas thing. It's like an organization for like medical, if you're interested in like medicine, things like that. It's like also competitions you can do. You also do like blood drives, I guess. So it's basically like a medical club. I also was involved in my book club at school. So like I'd host a monthly book reading, we'd host reading meetings, things like that. I also had, a biology club my senior year. We competed in like I think it was the United States, the biology Olympiad. Did not do that well in that, but it was still really fun experience. And I volunteered at the library regularly, and also research. Research is something I'm very passionate about, you know. It's so easy, okay, well, maybe not so easy, but it's really accessible to get research. It's something like I didn't know until like my junior year. Literally just if you like live by a college, email a professor, go on like the website, find someone who like you have really cool research you're interested in, literally email them and ask them like, look, like this is what I'm a passionate high schooler who's interested in like this. Your research really aligns with like my interests. Would you be willing to like, I don't know, I can go observe or like help out with anything you need. It's really as simple as that, honestly. I sent lots of those emails my junior and senior year, and I was able to do research with blood vessel remodeling my senior year. And that was really, really interesting. So anything you're interested in, definitely just reach out to someone, or like reach out to me afterwards and help you like email a professor. I also did orchestra. I played violin too, so I don't play it anymore. Maybe I might. I don't know. We'll see about that. Notable achievements. I did a program called FestBridge. It's for low-income students. Basically, it's like a finalist. It's like a scholarship again. I didn't get the scholarship, but it is a national competition type. So like I did put my, I was a national finalist for it on my Common App. I got lots of awards with HOSA and science fairs, state and region wide. I never nothing national, so like nothing at that level. But I put those awards there. And then I got into the National Hispanic Recognition Program. I think if you take the PSAT your junior year, you get above a certain threshold in your area. And if you're Hispanic, you can get one of those awards. And then I did get 2 scholarships, like the Gates Scholarship and the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, but those came after application, so those had no playing at all in my college process. I guess some tips for being accepted. I know number 1 tip is be passionate about your activities. Definitely do not do activities that you think will look good on college applications. You can definitely see on an app if like you're not passionate about it, you're only doing it for like to get into college, because and why would you spend your time doing activities you really don't care about? Even if it's the most like dumbest thing ever, right? Like, oh, I'm passionate about, I don't know, like history. Okay, well, sorry, no hate history people, but like, you know, something that sounds something mean, right? It's okay. Like if you're passionate about it, it will definitely show in your application, and it doesn't matter what it is. Like you just need to be passionate about it. That's really like all that matters. I talked about it earlier, but after getting scores of like 14, 50, 31 plus, it's all about your essays after that. I think the most important thing for essays is growth. Definitely talk about experiences where you've grown a lot and what you learned afterwards. That's the main important. The reflection part is the most important part of an essay. I struggle with this, but like when you're writing your essays, you really want to talk about like your experience, right? And then your reflection, what you learned from it. Your reflection should be the biggest chunk of your college essay, not like talking about the experience and what happened, right? So definitely, like I feel like people don't talk too much about the reflection. That's what they learn afterwards. That's the most important part. Colleges want to see your personal growth and who you are as a person, right? How these experiences affected you. So definitely focus on that. I'm reading a lot of essays for like people who are applying to college, and a lot of people are like, I don't know why people just use metaphors a lot. Use metaphors if it comes naturally, but definitely don't force it on your essay, or like don't force. If you see other people doing something, like don't do that. Like literally just write how you normally write, and that's the best way it'll sound. Oh yeah, regarding letters of recommendation, I'd recommend asking an English teacher. English teachers, I mean, obviously they write well, so they're teaching English, right? But my English teacher, like letter of recommendation, I read it after my application, and it was really good. Like they really do know how to write. So like if you have a close relationship with the English teacher, definitely go to them. Like I'm a STEM person, right? But literally all I have to do is like I gave my English teacher my resume, we talked about it and things like that, and like that's literally all it is. Like, but definitely ask people who in your life who you think are strong writers, who can definitely attest like your strengths. Yeah, don't care so much about your grades in high school. Like, obviously, as long as you keep it like in the top 10%, you should be fine. Like, literally anything in the top 10% is fine. Care more about experiences, because experience is what you're going to be talking about in your essays anyway. So just focus on that. And oh yeah, I'd also recommend. I think someone mentioned this earlier, but try to get a job in high school. Colleges really do like to do jobs, and like working, like not like working at like, I don't know, your father's like, oh, I mean that works too, but like, humble yourself. Just work somewhere like Starbucks. I worked in my uncle's restaurant. I like literally just like waited tables. But like, it's a great way also for you to get money, right? But also for you to like meet people like who you wouldn't normally meet, right? Like when you're like in your classes around people like your age, right? It's a great way to get some new experiences. And colleges really do like to see like you're someone who's dedicated, because work is very much something you have to do when you're dedicated, right? Showing up early every single day, things like that, right? I think it's a great way to show colleges like, I'm dedicated. But yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. So now we're doing a friendly competition thing. So in the chat, the participants, please put the colleges that you're interested in attending.
Sorry, just one.
Yep, just one. Okay, so I say the majority is Harvard. So now we'll have a Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, just drop them in the chat.
Oh, the medical club, it's called HOSA, HOSA. Technically, the full name is HOSA Future Health Professionals. But yeah, I mean, if your school doesn't have it, you can definitely start a chapter. Like, just go to the website and like give you instructions on how to reach them.
What did I do to boost my SAT score? Oh boy. Okay, so I took the first one when I was a freshman. I got 1380, or no, sorry, sophomore year, 1380. And then I panicked. So I bucked down and bought a couple books, got a personal tutor for like a couple of months, kind of just practiced for a couple months. Yeah, I realized that's pretty a big jump of about 200 points. I was surprised too, but yeah, I mean, I just practiced. I would recommend they have the official books that you can buy. That's Essential, Barron's, Kaplan's, all the normal stuff, Princeton Review. I bought all of them. So I used like 4 different books. Hopefully that helps.
I jumped 200 points on the old version too, which comes out to like 133 and change on the new version if you scale it down. And for me, it was that like I cheated on all my practice tests. Like I did so many practice tests, but it was always after like I was very foolish about my time commitments in high school, to where like I was definitely burning myself out and should have been leaving more time for myself. But I would be at like 10 o'clock at night, like falling asleep at my desk and like cheating on my practice tests to be done with them. So I stopped doing that. That was really helpful. Like just actually, tutors do help. But I think there's really no like replacement for just doing an unbelievable number of practice tests. And there's so many available for like very little or for free.
Okay, so anyone can answer this, but Someone asked, if you apply undecided, does it affect your application?
I think that goes
I don't
to
know
what,
if any of us are equipped to answer this question.
yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think it's fair to say though that like, I think Kevin highlighted how important fit is. And like every program, like yes, every school is going to have certain feelings, but even like the programs within the schools are going to have, you know, understandings of what they have now, what they want, you know, what does well at their school. So for example, I know like I did a lot of just reaching out to professors in the program I wanted to apply to and just like hoping they would email back, and it kind of worked. And admissions counselors and one of the things they like the Cornell business program was that they felt they had too many finance people, and they thought that everybody who applied for entrepreneurship like already had cool small businesses and were going to leave college. So I applied as a finance and entrepreneurship student, being an idiot, but but that's what I wanted to do, and I just had to. I did think carefully about, like writing essays about the businesses I had started, but really focusing on like why I wanted to be a student, not why I wanted to be like an idiot who just like leaves and tries to start businesses, who thinks he's Bill Gates, who's not. So I think like it's hard to say. It does matter to an extent, but I think like you don't go wrong with like filling out an application the way you feel like you should fill it out that describes you best. That always is the way that comes across best.
Sorry, I'm just trying to answer some of these questions.
Yeah, it's fine. What are some scholarships that you all applied to and received?
I applied to none.
Same.
I also applied for none. I was unfortunately for that question, I was in a situation of needing them freshman year.
I applied basically all of them. So like there were so many, right? I applied like to Gates, Coca-Cola, Hispanic Scholarship Fund. I applied to the Brian Cameron Impact Scholarship too. I also applied to I applied to so many. Oh, the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship too. There's lots of scholarships. Honestly, a lot of the big name ones, like the ones I mentioned, those ones are mainly like a college app. Like basically fill it out, you go to college app. But you have to look for your local scholarships. There's many of those. Ask your counseling office at your school. If you get those are very easy way to get like small amounts. Those do pile up.
Somebody asked if AP scores are important for admissions. It depends on the school. Cornell doesn't actually see your AP scores until after you're admitted, which was great for me because I was totally burned out and did terribly on most of my APs. But it just depends on the school. But I think a lot of them don't look at them until after. It would be considered in the same way like your senior spring semester grades would be considered, like rather than your actual application.
Yep. And someone asked, Brian, how do you find personal time for relief from all the things you do in Cornell?
Yeah, I don't know if I talked well enough about my experience at school. Sorry about that. But I think work hard, play hard is a decent way to describe it. I kind of go through waves. Like in high school, I got pretty burned out before senior year. And I just went from like doing way too much to doing almost nothing at all. And then played hockey for a while, which was kind of my main passion anyway. And then when I got to college, I just felt very refreshed and ready to go. Like I had taken 3 years off of an academic. I took some community college classes, but I felt like very much in a place where I wanted to prove something to myself and to people, that I knew academically. So I didn't make a lot of time, but I was motivated, and then that's what made me happy. And so that's kind of what's always led me, right? Sometimes what makes me happy is relaxing a lot, and sometimes what makes me happy is doing way too much. Right now, I'm running 2 companies, one of which is also a student club, and taking 19 credits and losing my mind. And I just drove like up to New York to see my girlfriend's grandparents, and like it's going to be a long night. But I'm really excited about the student club I run that's also a company, and I'm really excited about the other company I'm running, and I love the classes I'm taking. So the answer is I haven't figured out work-life balance. I'm still a college student. I'm not perfect. I think a lot of people our age, like I'm a senior in college, I think a lot of people our age haven't figured it out yet. But I just tend to, the one thing I've started doing is I've stopped listening to what other people think and like going as hard as they say I need to go. And I just work as hard as like I'm ready to go in that moment. And so for me, that tends to be more like on periods and off periods rather than, like this magical balance percentage of work versus play.
Wow, props to you. Okay, another question. How do you go about financial aid and stuff? I'm super confused on what to do and the process. Also, do Ivy Leagues provide aid even for approximately 200 to 250K annual household income?
Good question.
So do you mean by applying for financial aid or like negotiating? If you can clarify in the chat or maybe speak up. Applying, okay. So this varies from school to school. Definitely fill out the FAFSA. That's literally every school. Some schools use the CSS, which is through the College Board. Some schools have something else called, I forgot what it was called. I think maybe like tabs or something. You can definitely like go to any school's website and see their like required financial aid applications, because most of the time there's like 2 or 3. Definitely go about like filling all of that information out. You definitely want to apply for financial aid, and as opposed to like, not doing so. There's a lot of information like on websites as well. I'm not exactly sure about ranges, but I think that information might be online. I think at least for UPenn, I think they have like an infographic type of thing where they outline how much financial aid they've given and break it down into different income brackets. So you can definitely Google that as well. But just make sure that you just go on the school's website and see like every piece of documentation that they require of you and just fulfill that. As long as you do all of that, like you're bound to like, to successfully apply for financial aid. And then when they get back to you, then you can begin your negotiations process.
Great, thank you. How do you recommend emailing professors for research? Also, do you guys have a way for us to contact you?
Oh, for research? Yeah, really, what I did was I just emailed my resume and a cover letter, basically saying like, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I said, like AP biology, like safety or science classes in high school and what you've done so far. You basically just want to convey that you're passionate about like the research and you're really interested in like talking to them or like even doing research at their lab. I can drop my email in the chat in case anybody wants to ask anything, but yeah.
Another question in the chat. How did the area your school is located in affect your college experience?
That's a good question. Depends, I think, on what you like in a living environment. I'm sure, I know Cornell is kind of its own little bubble. Harvard is right in the middle of Cambridge. I never really got a chance to see UPenn. I'm assuming it's in the city. Brown is on like a little isolated thing about 15 minutes away from downtown. I like it. It's kind of a mixture of both the city and its own like little bubble campus. I mean, that's perfectly fine for me. I never consider myself to be particularly a city man or a non-city man. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what y'all say, actually.
I think that's a pretty accurate description of Cornell. Like I said, I also went to Northeastern University in Boston freshman year, which is the opposite side of the river from Harvard and MIT, but about as urban as you could possibly get. It's really almost in the north end of Boston. I loved Northeastern. I just couldn't turn down Cornell, especially since I wanted to go there from out of high school. Cornell is gorgeous. It is nowhere. It is 4 hours north of New York City. There's like no getting around that, but the bus is like $25 and really clean. It's not like a normal bus experience. It's like a Cornell to New York City and back bus experience. I mean, you're next to one of the most beautiful state parks in the country in Watkins Glen. There are gorges, which you've probably heard about for bad reasons, unfortunately, but basically these extreme, very skinny canyons all over the place that have waterfalls in them. There's mountains to go hiking. I've done a lot of outdoor activities at Cornell. That was big for me. It does get really cold. That there's also no getting around that. But it actually, there are a lot of good small communities, and you'll make good friends if you decide to come to Cornell. And the cold is as much of like a bonding experience as it is a miserable experience. So I think the little bit of grit that you have to go through to get to class every once in a while is worth it, and the friends you make and the stories you get to share.
Okay, we have like a couple of more questions. What do you think is the most important part of the application? What is the part of the application that affects most to be accepted?
Oh, so I already said this in chat, but I don't mind repeating myself. So basically what an advisor told me was that no single part of your application will get you into a school, but a single part of your application can keep you out of a school. So what I would advise in this regard is just to have a strong, um, just to be strong on all fronts. So I think we went over this. So your academics should be strong. Again, if you had a rough start, like colleges love seeing like improvement over time. So that's fine as well. You want decent testing scores. I think someone mentioned like, what, 1450 or something. Want to have some extracurriculars. You don't need like 10, you don't need 5. If you have like 1, 2, 3 that you're like truly dedicated to, like that's perfect. And you know, when you're writing college essays and your personal statement, you know, all the other criteria are like more like objective based, like, hey, what do you do? What are your grades? But the college essays and the personal statements is your time to like show your personality, to show your character. It's a little bit more subjective. So I would say, you know, part of having a strong personal essay for personal statement, for example, is obviously you want it to be, you want the tense to be correct. You want the, you know, you don't want like you want to make sure that like physically, like, you know, there aren't mistakes, spelling mistakes, but you also want to be as true to yourself as possible. So I believe like college admissions people are very good at seeing between the lines. So don't try and fake a voice. Just be like very true to yourself. Write in the way that you would write. You don't need to like sound like super posh or anything. Just express yourself, but also make it interesting. Don't like give them a list of like, so I was born at this time and you know I did XYZ. Like you don't want to give them a chronological order of your life. So like definitely like something that's unique to you. It can be the smallest thing. Like it can be the most basic thing as like, I don't know, let's say like discovering a love for reading. You know, it's not the most like exciting showstopper, but the way you tailor it to your own experience gives college admissions more insight into who you are as a person. And so that uniqueness of your experience is what shines through, not the thing itself, not, oh, I learned to love reading. It's more about like, who did you become in learning to love reading, or how did it impact you? Like, what's the, like, who's the, colleges want to know like who they're accepting, basically. So outside of scores and academics, like who is this person really?
I can further back up what Esther's saying. I graduated high school from a very competitive high school in New Jersey, but I graduated with a cumulative 3.6 GPA. But it was very heavily weighted and very much screwing up freshman year. I was just overcommitted to extracurricular activities, and that was extremely clear. And I was living too far away from my school, and I ended up switching schools. There were just a lot of things not like that I didn't do right. But you know, junior and senior year, I had like a 4.0 or close to a 4.0. And yeah, I still only graduated with a 3.6. So don't sell yourself short either. You know, if you know why things didn't go your way, sometimes speak to it. People understand.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions. Thank you all for attending.